It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
A good moment. It's Barnet Bain. Welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. And hey, straight up, I would like to remind you that this program is made possible with support from Hierophant Publishing and Insight Events USA, producers of books and events for body, mind, and spirit. They support us. We hope you're going to support them too. So, boy, lots going on. Spence, how are you?
I'm doing great.
You do. You look great. You look fabulous. Well, you know, I read a lot of random stuff, so I came across this thing. This is from the NIH, the National Institute of Health. So here's what got my interest. It seems that researchers are studying the microbial makeup of the human body. Yeah, you're nodding. So what's the big deal, you say, right? So the facts. Number one, there's more than 37 trillion cells in the body. Number two, microbes inhabit just about every part of the body, and they outnumber cells by, you ready, 10 to 1. So now think about this. Microbes are not you. These are bacteria. This is not consciousness. So if only 1/10 of what you and I think of as you and I, well, you're getting my point, right? So exactly what is me? What is me? Whitman said, I am large, I contain multitudes. Seems to me we're a system, a complexity of moving parts, and what part of us is conscious? What part of that is me? So I'm not sure. We're going to explore that a little bit with our guest. I'm thrilled to have our guest today. He's well known to you. He's certainly well known to listeners of this station since he's on right after this program. We lead in. George Noory is host of Coast to Coast AM, which airs on more than 600 stations. I think that's more than we are on, by my last count. And George is also the author of Talking to the Dead and George Noory's Late Night Snacks. His new book, just out, is Someone is Hiding Something. What Happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight 370? So I am thrilled to have you with us today on Cutting Edge Consciousness. George, welcome.
Hey, Barnett, great to be with you, too. I'm looking forward to this chat about all things strange, including that missing plane.
All things strange. Yeah, we're definitely going to get into that missing plane. I'm excited to hear what you have dug up with the Bells. Richard Belzer was your co-author on that, and I'm tickled at the idea of you two guys in the same room together, but we're going to get to that. So what do you make of this, the idea that, boy, we are conscious, we have a sense of who we are and what we are, at least we think we do, but you come down to take a little closer look, and just at the level of the cell structure, we're outnumbered 10 to 1 by bacteria. And as Whitman said, we contain multitudes. I always thought that he was referring to, my higher self, my future self, the various developmental cells, my child, my adolescent, all at different stages of arrested consciousness development. But what really, who are we? You've probably been tossing that one around for a good many years. What do you think?
Oh, Barnett, that's a question that everybody asks themselves almost all the time.
Yeah.
Who are we? Where are we headed? Where do we come from? Incredible mysteries. If you take the religious possibilities, of course, you simply say, look, we were created by God. We're here to achieve this heavenly status and move on to a better life in the other side, the other existence. But by and large, people just don't know. They're confused. They just are looking for answers to try to figure out, what are we doing here? What's it all about?
Yeah. Well, I have a sense that you know something of what you're doing here, and I know something of what I'm doing here. I certainly have no big answers, but I do have a bead on my passion, and I have a sense of what matters to me, and somehow my life feels directional. You know what I'm talking about?
I sure do. Absolutely. And I think, for example, our purpose here is to help other people, to perfect ourselves, to become almost angelic until that day that we physically die and move on to another plane. Now, I also believe in reincarnation, and I think that's a huge part of all of this, too. I think those who continue to reincarnate come back over and over and over again until they reach that level of perfection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We come back and peel back another layer of the onion and another layer of the onion and another layer of the onion. And maybe there's a paradox there, because it seems to me that the more that I peel it back, even in this life, the more chaotic it becomes. And sometimes it's a beautiful chaos, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it can feel also a little scarier. Sometimes, everything I thought about life, that there were certain absolutes and certain guarantees and certain insurances if you play by the rules, that just is going to the wind. And every day, it seems, more and more is less and less predictable.
Oh, that's absolutely true. It's scary only because it is unpredictable. But I think once people realize that there's much more to this, the fear factor goes away, Barnett. I remember as a kid, I had a science teacher who said, the sun's going to burn out in 5 billion years. And I would go home crying.
Yeah.
And I'd tell my parents, I'd say, it's over for us. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, Mr. Strom said the sun's going to burn out. And my dad said, who really wasn't that scientifically inclined, but he knew it was a long time away, he said, George, I think it's going to be billions of years from now. And I went,
yeah, but Dad, time flies when you're having fun.
It's going to happen. It goes by quickly. And, I got a little older and realized, you know what, 5 billion years is a long, long time. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it sure is.
But it's the unknown, Barnett, that gets people, I think, uptight, scared, doing strange things.
Yeah.
And but once we all need to get these answers for ourselves.
It takes a real seasoning, a real maturity. You've got to be around the block a few times before you can get gentle enough and compassionate enough to play it sort of fast and loose with knowing you don't have the answers. And then, I personally am more able to see the frenzied dance that people do for love or for safety or status or security or whatever it is with, people are looking for some kind of grounding in a world that really doesn't have any grounding except who you are as a human being.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got your finger on the pulse. You know where it's headed, and you have an understanding, I think, just by some of the things you've just said in this brief interview, that a lot of people need to grasp in order to, I think, move on to that next step. And, those are some of the things we do on Coast to Coast all the time, just trying to get the answers to these really provocative questions.
Yeah.
Who are we? What are we?
It's what I love about Coast to Coast. I've been a fan for years, and many, many years ago I was on, I just made What Dreams May Come, and I was on with Art years and years ago. Mm-hmm. So I've been a fan so now we're talking about since 99, I started listening. And there's something so helpful and comforting about having this discussion on the air, and certainly by having it with an audience of 3 million or some odd people a week, tells us something about the hunger, not necessarily for ultimate answers, but just to feel seen and heard and understood by a voice that shares the same kind of inquiry. This is important stuff. It's important that these conversations be had.
I had a call last night from a truck driver.
Yeah.
He was almost in tears, thanking us for being there for him. Now, when you broadcast to millions of people every night, we do try to communicate with just the one. And, he said years ago, I was listening to your show, you had a guest on about, spirituality and something I was missing in my life. I was reckless. I actually thought I did bad things to people. And he said, I started changing after that show, and now I'm at a point where, you know what? You saved me. And, we're a little humble here. We didn't save him, but he honestly believes that the program and the direction we've taken it has changed his life.
Well, I get that. When I was a little boy, I can remember sitting in my bed with my little transistor radio with my 6 transistors in it. I was so excited. It was red and had a gold dial, and I had my little earphone in. You could barely hear anything through it. And I would tune into the world, and I'd listen to the talk shows. There were therapy shows on back in the day.
Yep.
And I felt somehow comforted. I just felt a sense that I was not alone with what troubled me, even as a boy, and that there's something about the ability to ask questions and to be heard and to be listened to, even if there are not ultimate answers, that is so comforting. It makes us all human, and it puts us all in the same boat, and it opens hearts. So it's a glorious opportunity to do the kinds of things we do, and you've been at it for a real long time. I'm curious how you got into it.
Oh, I got into broadcasting when I was really young. 19, I officially got into broadcasting as a production assistant at a Detroit TV station. I wanted to get into broadcasting for years, since I was a little kid, because I was obsessed with the unusual stories of life, the paranormal, the unusual, the mysteries. And I figured the only way to do that and to get the answers was to be a reporter. Because, George Noory, citizen, when I grew up, just making phone calls wasn't going to do it. But George Noory, the reporter, the journalist, the broadcaster, was going to do it. He was going to get those answers. And so I decided at a very young age, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to go into. I want to uncover these mysteries. And here I am, still looking, still trying to uncover them, but I'm doing what I wanted to do.
It's great. It's like we dig a deeper and deeper hole. We're still digging. It's still exciting. And you look out around the sides of the hole, and it's a paradox, because there is a deeper sense of understanding, but my goodness, we're really digging at the bottom of a pit. It's a pit of mystery, and it doesn't get we don't gain ultimate understanding ever, but we do, I think, gain connection. We do connect to other hearts, and that's what makes it juicy and delicious.
Yep, no question about it.
So you have been, in addition to being on air, you've been doing all of this writing. And you decided that you were going to explore some of the mystery around Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. You had the sense, obviously, that we were not being, nobody was coming clean with us, or they weren't coming clean with the fact that they had no idea what they were up against. And so you jumped in there. What prompted you to make that? That's a big commitment.
Well, it's been a year now since this plane has gone missing.
Yeah.
And just recently, someone said they found a little towelette in a package that says Malaysia on it that floated ashore. Who knows what that is? Could have come from anything. Could have been a plant for all I know. But, we always suspected, we being Richard Belzer, David Wayne, even Jim Sanders, who wrote the story of TWA Flight 800, that something was very strange with this plane, that they just don't disappear. So, we wrote a book, and the title of it is Someone is Hiding Something, and that title didn't come from us, Barnet. It came from the former Malaysian Prime Minister, who basically said, planes either land or they don't. Someone's hiding something. And we said, my God, what a great quote. And then we did, and we went and came up with 9 different explanations with what we think might have happened to this plane. And, it runs the gamut from hijacking, pilot suicide. All the examples are possible. We've got our own ideas of which ones are really plausible, but they're all possible. And until they find that plane, one way or another, nobody's ever going to really know what happened to it.
I'm not even sure where you begin to go about doing that kind of research.
Well, believe it or not, most of the research came to us. It was all public. The various explanations that are in the book, someone is hiding something, were laid out a long time ago. And then based on things that we've done on the program on Coast to Coast, it was obvious. Hey, let's add this to it. Let's add that to it. And that's what we did. And so it wasn't a secret. I mean, they were just common sense. People would understand it. When they read the book, they'll look at the explanations, and they'll say, that's possible. That's possible. This one, I don't think so. That one's possible.
Yeah.
And then that's what it's going to be. But, our theory basically is that the plane was taken and probably blown up by us because we didn't want it to be used as a weapon once it landed somewhere. As far as the people were concerned, they probably were all killed on that plane. When it went up to 44,000 feet, they asphyxiated.
Wow. Well, hold on one second, because this is I'm still chewing on this. I'm going to chew and chew as fast as I can, see if I can swallow some. We're going to put the theory and the show on a glide path for a moment while we hear from our fine supporters of this program, and we will be right back in a minute with George Noory.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
We're back. Thank you for sticking with us here on Cutting Edge Consciousness and our guest, George Noory. So, George, before the break, you dropped a bomb on me, and it's been detonating all through the break. And so let me just pull it together for a second. The possibility that that an aircraft filled with civilians might have been taken down preemptively is such a dramatic circumstance. How would our government, how would any government ever justify to a population that they would do such a thing? What a explosive theory. So would you unpack a little bit about how you came to this thought?
Well, first of all, to answer your question, how would they justify it?
Yeah.
They won't tell us. That's how they justify it.
Yeah.
This is the world's greatest secret. I think the public would probably understand, look, the plane was hijacked. We are not going to let it get in the hands of terrorists. God knows what they're going to do with it once they get it. We had to do what we had to do. People would understand that. It's sad, it's tragic, but it's an unfortunate necessity.
Well, they'd understand it if they knew that it was hijacked, but if they were, if that was inconclusive and it was a judgment call, then you're really opening up a kettle of fish.
The tragedy of 9/11.
Yeah.
I would have had no problem, and I still think the Pennsylvania plane was shot down. But
yeah.
I would have had no problem once we really knew that these planes were hijacked. Yeah. And it looks like they're headed for big buildings to take them out, and to take them out fast.
Yeah, yeah. Again, if you knew that they were on a trajectory towards a target and you knew they were hijacked, but if you had some doubt as to the circumstances and then the call was made to take it down, then it would be very difficult to make a case to a public.
And our other theory is, Barnet, that it landed. It might have landed in Somalia, but with satellite technology, we knew exactly where that plane was, and we went down and just took it out.
Which makes sense. I mean, you can't hide a cell phone on this planet.
No, you can't hide anything. You can't hide anything. And the technology's there. And we just don't believe that this plane just merely disappeared, especially after flying for 6-7 hours after it lost contact with people. The systems of communication were shut off almost immediately. It's a weird story. So, again, we put 9 different theories together, and someone is hiding something. and all of us contributed to those possibilities. And, God, I hope they find the plane, but I'm not sure they will.
Sure do. And what's been the response to the theories?
All of them.
Probably.
All of them are good. Some of them are far out. I mean, the whacked out ones are, they went through a wormhole, and a UFO craft gobbled it up and took it.
Well, come on. You are the host of Coast to Coast, so.
Exactly. So you got to throw those out there. But I mean, there are others. Mechanical failure, of course. It was shot down by a missile.
Yeah.
Advanced technologies. It landed on, either Diego Garcia, Somalia, somewhere.
Yeah.
All of them. All of these possibilities are possible. Look, this Air Asia crash a couple months ago.
Yeah.
They found everybody fast, these poor people. The bodies, the rubble, the wreckage. This one, nope. Can't find it.
So I'm guessing that from officialdom, you got benign indifference, or maybe something more dramatic. Anything happen there?
Well, there's not going to be anything much more dramatic than these 9 scenarios.
Yeah.
All of them are out there. And again, any one of them is possible. Are others higher rated in terms of possibility? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're all in there. They're all in the mix. And even if one is 1% possible, you got to mention it.
And what's been the response to the theories? What have you?
They've all been pretty good. I was on an Australian television show. It was their Today Show in Australia, and they kind of shied away from the alien possibility or the wormhole, but the other ones they accepted.
Well, we'll see, in due course, again, as consciousness unfolds, there'll come a time when people are not so quick to shy away from the other possibilities. I mean, what we take for granted now, not too long ago, seem like the most far out science fiction. People
have learned not to trust a handout from anyone, government, you name it, and even some media. And one of the things that has made our program so successful is, look, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're going to try to get you the truth, and we're going to lay it out there, for good or for bad, and we go from there. And, that's what we've done over all these years.
So what in your history of being a pioneer and a scout in these matters of the metaphysical and the paranormal and the mysterious, how has that opened your mind and your heart?
When I came in and started doing Coast to Coast 12 years ago, going on 13, I was into all this. But the government conspiracy angle, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I learned that, that was entirely possible. And, now I'm at a point where I just don't trust anybody like that in government. I think they're all out for their own agenda. But the paranormal, I always had beliefs of life after death. Questioned it sometimes, but I always believed it. Always believed that Bigfoot is a creature and it's out there. I believe we've been visited by extraterrestrial life, that this universe is way too vast and their technologies are way too advanced not to believe that.
Yeah.
And what I try to do with our guests on Coast to Coast, I try not to judge. I don't try to interject my views, how I feel on the air, because I want the guest to be able to talk about it without me saying, you're nuts.
Absolutely.
Or, hey, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Just to get a good interview out of somebody. And I think the audience appreciates that.
Back in the day, Mark Twain had an unfinished novel, you may be aware of it, called The Mysterious Stranger.
Yeah.
And he had a belief that, as he put it, that we should not have suspected that our universe and that its contents were only dreams and visions, fiction. He said that it would strange that we should not think that because they are so frankly and hysterically insane, like all dreams. The dream marks, he said, are all present. We should have recognized them earlier. So his theory in The Mysterious Stranger is that we are coming to a lucidity. We're not lucid dreaming. We're beginning to become as we explore consciousness and phenomena. We are beginning to become more lucid livers in the asking of these questions, empowering ourselves to be awake inside this incredible, mysterious dream that seemed to have operated with hard and fast rules, and those rules are getting pretty loosey-goosey these days. You have any thoughts about that? What's your response to that?
Well, I think he was probably right on, wasn't he?
It sounds pretty right on to me. It just sounds like the juiciest invitation for a big conversation. Are we all dream stuff? Are we all dreaming each other? And that's a pretty exciting notion. It's a pretty captivating notion.
Have you been interested in the unusual for a long time?
Oh, long time. When I was a very, very little boy, I can remember 5, 6 years old, crawling into bed at night when I wasn't listening to the radio and trying to go to sleep and falling out of my body. I can remember it felt like just going into a free fall, slow, but a free fall elevator, down, 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 or sometimes rising up, 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 up. And it would be this exquisitely wonderful, exciting feeling, and also terrifying, because at some point I would feel I was so far away that I might never come back. So I have been dialed in on these issues as long as I can remember, and also as long as I can remember, I have known that somehow the world is not separate from me, that somehow the whole ball of wax is an enchantment, and that I am part of enchanted stuff. And we all are. I've always known that things don't happen to me in the way that my parents always laid it out. I remember my dad saying, "Do you think that like the whole world's out of step and you're not?" And now, if my dad was around, I might more gently admit to that. I'd cop to that. The truth is, it's not that I am out of step or not out of step, but there are more and more and more people. So many of our audiences feel the same way, that there are mysteries, there are more things on heaven and earth, as you cited earlier in the show, than are known, and it's our delight and our privilege and our job is with the best part to explore them and share the exploration.
You sound like you're very spiritual.
I am. Yeah, I am.
That's important.
I am.
A good foundation.
It is the priority of my life. Everything else, including this talk I'm having with you, is an expression of that spirituality. Everything. It just feels like a diamond with a lot of facets. And sometimes I get lost in the facets. And sometimes I'm able to get far enough back from it so that I can see that it's a jewel. It's a single jewel. There's only one thing going on.
That's the best way to do it. You're doing well.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. You know that. I don't have to tell you. You know that. I'm speaking to the converted here. So what's the most exciting thing going on for you these days, George?
Oh, gosh. Breathing is exciting.
It is, isn't it? How about how many people you know that don't breathe?
Waking up in the morning and just saying, you know what, it's another day. Thank God. Let's make it happen. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. You mentioned breathing, and I was only half kidding. So few people breathe. I went through most of my life before I understood that I don't breathe. And I get into the sort of fight or flight mode a lot of the time, or the control, or that's the double down, and the first thing that happens is my breath disappears. I'm holding my breath, or I'm breathing so shallowly. Mm-hmm. And the more I'm able to take a breath, the more I can tap into my own aliveness, and suddenly there seems to be a little more freedom. So I don't think it's accidental. I know it's not accidental that you said just breathing. I mean, that's a big piece.
You know how sometimes right before you're about ready to embark on something big, you take that deep, slow breath to try to calm yourself down, to get yourself ready. And it works. I mean, when I do a lot of live stage events, and I'm behind stage, and they've announced me, and everybody's out there clapping and screaming, that's what I do. I take that big, long breath, and then bang, then I hit it, and it works.
Yeah, it calms down. It feeds with energy. All of those. Maybe it's those component pieces that we talked about at the top of the show. All these multitudes that I contain. Each one has its own conditioning and its own perspective on the world. And the part of me that is this infant that thinks, God, I'm defenseless, or the part of me that thinks I have to barrel through everything. You take a breath and they just feel enlivened, and maybe they calm down just a little bit. At least that's my experience of it.
Yep, so true.
So I wish that you could stay for the last segment. I know that you're heavily scheduled and that we have to say goodbye. So before that happens, I want our listeners to know, apart from Coast to Coast, which everybody knows that, and certainly on this station they know the show, and they love the show. And as I said earlier, I'm privileged to lead into the show. What else are you up to, and where can people find out where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, and how they can be there?
Well, a couple quick things. First of all, again, the name of the book that just came out, available at bookstores, Amazon.com, is Someone is Hiding Something. And in terms of my speaking engagements, I'm all over the country. Just go to our website, coasttocoastam.com. Right at the top of the page, it says Events. Click that and just track. And as we schedule them and book them, we put them up on the website. And they've been great events. They've been fun. Some of them are just conferences. Some of them are stage shows, but they're all out there, and we do meet and greets. And one thing, Barnett, that I always do, no matter where I'm speaking, when we do a meet and greet, I don't leave until that last person has had their chance to come up and say hi or hug me or get a picture. And that's just the way it is.
A hugger. I love that. So next time you're in L.A. and you do one of those events, I know from time to time you have panels. I want to be on that panel. I want to stand up there and get my hug.
That'd be fun. You get it all.
That's fabulous. I'm so grateful that for the time that you spent with us today. I'm looking forward to the next time. Hope there'll be a next time soon. And until then, be well, George.
You got it.
Thanks
Bye.
so much.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we are back on Cutting Edge Consciousness, and it was really a pleasure to have George with us. Thank you, George. Until next time. So much there that he's left my mind kind of spinning, trying to digest and make some sense of. It's so interesting. What happened to that plane? That's lots of food for thought there, and very provocative theories, so provocative. I'm also taken by this, by looking at the question from the point of view of our consciousness, and as I began the program, thinking in terms of a system. Here's this question that I posed: who are we really if only 1/10, or that microbes outnumber my human cells by 10 to 1? Who am I really? Am I the microbe? Is that me any more or less me than my cells? Is the part of me that lives in memory of the way I function as a child, is that me? Is my desire to make sense of my world in terms of logic and reason and explanations, is that me? Which me is the one that wants to understand logically what happened to that aircraft? There is another me that is, as George said, other explanations that don't seem quite so logical, don't seem quite so rooted in our sense of reality, or reality as we've known it. The point for me, is not whether the plane went through a wormhole or was abducted by ETs. That's not the point. The point is, for me, that these kinds of explanations and inquiries and questions, just questions, that are outside of logic and outside of linear thinking, that are not so tightly held inside this conditioned, structured box of an imagination. It's a little looser. So maybe it's not exactly that way, but I love the kind of thinking, the kind of feeling that goes into a juicier, more expansive imagination that can hold that. So I love that George sits down with Richard Belzer and his other co-author and sketches out a number of theories, some of which are more tightly, more rigorously logical, and some of which are less so. And it seems to me that, in a way, these are responses to the question, what happened to that flight? It's responses to that question from, as Whitman said, the different intelligences. One is a more imaginative intelligence. One is a more constricted, facts are linear and straight line and logical intelligence. Which one is me? Which one is me? And maybe yes, it's all me. And maybe what I refer to mostly when I say me is the needle. I'm going to risk a metaphor here, so bear with me. Spence is shaking his head. He's nodding. He's going to go on the metaphor journey with me. So maybe it's all me. And maybe my point of consciousness is the needle that pulls the thread of story. And the needle itself is my point of consciousness, and where that knits the various intelligences together. Let me put it a different way. If I was to ask you, listeners, if I was to say, write about the first landing, Neil Armstrong on the moon, one small step for mankind, write about that, or speak about it from the perspective of a scientist. It would be very logical. And then if I said, okay, now speak about it from the perspective of an artist, of like Picasso, of somebody with a mindset of cubism, it would be a very different conversation. Or speak about it from the perspective of a 4-year-old. It would be sort of magical. Or the perspective of someone who had a deep love and longing for our planet, looking back at that beautiful blue ball of marble of a ball hanging in space. All of these are they're totally different responses to nominally anyway, to the same material, to the same topic. So we do create meaning, and we do it, I feel that it's happening by the way we stitch together the various intelligences that we are. So, and they're all so very different. So I keep coming back to this because, I started the show with this. You can tell it's on my mind, so bear with me. Please bear with me. I think we're systems. We're systems, and I think if we were to describe, what's a system? I think it's an assembly of parts where every single part contributes to something more than itself, but without any loss of its own individuality. So I'm sitting in front of this microphone here in the studio, and the microphone has a foamy thing on to cut the sound of my breath and over the microphone, and then it has a bunch of wires, and then it has a stand, and then the wire goes down and plugs into the electrical socket, and the plug is not the microphone, and the foamy thing that stops my breathing that's from sounding like a hurricane is not the microphone, and the wire is not the microphone. All together, they create a system and they have a function, but each piece of it is no less a plug for being part of a microphone. So I'm rambling away here, but I hope that you're as interested in this as I am. Spence, you look modestly interested, and that's a good thing. Who are we really? I think it's all conscious. I think it's all consciousness. And I look out at every human being and every blade of grass and every microphone and every tree and every lost aircraft and every guest on this wonderful show. It's all consciousness, and it's all the same consciousness. That's the wonder of it. That's the secret. That's the mystery. It's all the same consciousness. And Spence, my producer, is the same consciousness as me. And he has a tiny little bit of me in him, and I have a tiny little bit of him in me. And can I begin to... What would happen, I should say, if I began to lead my life more and more with that awareness? What might change? I don't know. It's a rhetorical question. I'm not sure what would change. I think, for one, I might have a lot more patience with other people. I might have a lot more patience with myself. I might have an active sense of caring for others. And I might not see the world in quite the same way, competitive way. Not to say that I would broom competition, but it might be a competition sort of like in the Olympic model, where you compete ideally to elevate the level of play and to support others to becoming more and more of who they can be. I know that was the original Olympic ideal. It doesn't always play out that way. There's the other side of it, which is let's just crush it. But if we knew that we were all of the same fabric, if we knew it. Once, a long time ago, a few years ago on this show, I remember talking about Indra's net. Indra was a Hindu god, and I think he's also figures in the Buddhist tradition as well, but he is a Hindu god. And Indra's had this enchanted fisherman's net that stretched to infinity. And in the crosshairs of the net, stitched into the crossweave, every crossweave in the total infinity of this net was stitched a jewel, a pearl, a reflective pearl. And the miracle of this is that in every one of those pearls, those infinite number of pearls stitched into the crossweave of this infinitely proportioned, scaled fisherman's net, every pearl held the reflection of every other pearl in the infinity of the net, which is as glamorous and as evocative a description of holographic reality as I can imagine. Only it's some 5,000 or 6,000 years old. So there is this sense that I find moving that we are both separate and simultaneously, mystically somehow. It's a paradox. We're both separate and connected. And that really we've all heard this, and certainly my listeners have heard this for many years from me and from Freeman, and as well as elsewhere from Art Bell many, many years ago, from George Noory, who has been at the helm of that show for many, many years now. We have heard that we're all one. So it's a paradox. We're all one, and yet we're all separate. But I think the paradox is starting to resolve. It's starting to resolve. We do contain multitudes, and these multitudes are infinite reflections of the oneness, of the one. So it's a system. It's a system. How does that strike you, my friend?
It's right in the middle there. I love the conversation with George. People who don't know about that program, and just about everybody does, but it is unique, sincerely unique, because Radio After Dark has traditionally been sort of a something of very low existence.
Yeah.
This man has had the ability.
He raised it.
To grab people from 10 at night till 2 in the morning. He gets an incredible audience that is generally quite thoughtful, and like you're saying, it's not just the way. I loved it when you brought your dad into the conversation, because my dad was out of World War II, and this stuff was no.
Yeah.
Get some meat in the pot. You put the potato. That was. And he didn't.
Mine
there.
as well. My dad would not go there, but my dad's been gone for many years. But many years ago, I sat down and I had a incredibly deep conversation on these issues with him.
But he
went
older?
There. He was older.
See?
So there's a thing that happens in the end zone of life.
Same thing with exactly
there's
the same
a softening,
thing with my dad.
and there's a willingness to let go of the brittle edges of how we see things.
My dad
let
would
it
have
be a
said,
little softer.
Yeah, my dad would have said everything you said was a load of you know what.
Yeah.
Up until my dad passed at about 80, just before his 80th birthday.
Yeah.
But in the last one, he just started looking at, like you say, that piece of me and you, and all of that. And this program allows this conversation. Your program, Cutting Edge Consciousness, with Freeman, allows that conversation to continue. And as some people look and go, oh yeah, but it's something that's a quality of humans that you guys bring out each week that is interesting and it's unique. Because why do we care about these people in this plane, this horrible? Why do we have that essence?
Why do we care about anything?
And
why do we? Where is this caring sourced? And, we look to our religious traditions and, we're children of God or however it's held. But what does that mean? Where is this caring sourced? What is the connection? How does it that somebody runs into a burning building for a stranger? What is it about us that below the way we're conditioned, below our character, below our beliefs, below our traditions, all of a sudden, we are selfless. And this speaks to more deeply to who we truly are.
And your show does that, and his show certainly does that.
His show does that for on such a massive scale, and it was so much fun to have him with us today. I know he'll be back, and we'll do more with him. But it was really a lot of fun to share the air together. And with that, I think that we have come to the end of our little window here. And I thank you, listeners, for being with us and for coming back week after week. I appreciate it. And if you would like to share this show with others, please do so. And like us on our Facebook page. You can also check out our podcasts on YouTube and elsewhere. And remember, again, that the program is produced with support from Hierophant Publishing and Insight Events USA. They like us, and we love them. We thank you for listening, and we'll be back with you again, we hope, next week. Bye now.